Welcome to the Business of Travel, the official podcast of the Global Business Travel Association. I'm Suzanne Neufang, CEO of GBTA. The business travel industry is fueled by innovative suppliers and intermediaries who focus on serving both corporate travel programs and the travelers whom companies send out on the road on work trips. GBTA is fortunate to have many of these innovative companies serving on our Allied Leadership Council, comprised of our top industry supporters across several travel categories. In this podcast series, GBTA Allied Leadership Council members and other key executives from their companies discuss top focus areas, the latest business travel trends, and what the future holds for corporate travel in general. In today's episode, we're diving into transient hotel procurement and meetings tech advancements with executives from hotel, meetings, and payments intermediary, HRS. We'll explore the current state of business travel and what HRS is focused on to serve customers in this space. So it is my pleasure to be joined today by Lukasz Dabrowski, HRS's SVP of Global Supplier Relations, and Kari Wendel, HRS's VP of Meeting Solutions. Welcome, Lukasz and Kari, and thanks so much for joining me for today's discussion.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. Thank you for having us.
So, Lukasz, let's start with you. At HRS, you engage with the world's largest global hotel brands as they navigate access to corporate hotel and meetings programs. As we start this second half of 2025, what are you seeing that are the most prominent issues hotels are concerned about as they begin negotiations with corporations for 2026 rates and amenities?
Well, thank you once again for offering us the opportunity, Suzanne. Let me just start out with saying that it is a privilege to be here today, so close to the convention. Super excited about what's going to happen in Denver. And counting down big time. So on your questions, I've got 4 points for you. One is predictability. Second will be recalibration. Third will be all about personalization. And the last one, most predictable, about rates. Let me take a short deep dive into each one of those in terms of the concerns and issues starting as of the middle of 2025. Predictability, I think, across multiple industries under current economic and geopolitical climate, the certainty of what can be planned, what can be executed, what can be expected is definitely diminishing. So that is a distinct challenge today for anybody involved in our business, as I'm sure it is echoed across multiple members of the GBTA organization. Economic geopolitical uncertainties is one. We have plenty of conversations where that topic is popping up. The war that keeps expanding. First, the Ukraine conflict, now the Middle East events of recent week or so. They have a very powerful downstream impact on how people, how planners and decision makers see the predictability and certainty of our business moving forward. There is very little advice and guidance from governments at this uncertain point in terms of who can travel where, right? So obviously that is also a big missing piece. And I'm going to make a reference to your survey, to your report from April earlier this year, where nearly a third of the respondents, the American, US-based travel buyers, expected a decline in the business travel volumes, with 19% saying that they were unsure of their own projections at that time. So definitely a big point. It is closely followed by the hotel community or lodging community recalibration of overall strategy when it comes to operations and when it comes to inventory management. We all know how difficult it has been to rebuild after the pandemic. And I think we are still suffering from some of the pain points that have occurred during that period of time. One being, yeah, it is extremely difficult to find qualified staff in hospitality. And what we see is that plenty of hotel organizations and hotel providers, they go towards what I label as the golden middle in terms of the overall strategies, which is instead of trying to oversell their hotel and achieve maximum occupancies, they're very conscious of maintaining brand standards. They're very conscious of maintaining the quality of services that their brands are recognized for. And instead of aiming for high occupancy, that would also occur in more cost um, in terms of operations, they prefer to sit at a very comfortable occupancy level that may even start at 65, 70%, not more than that, with a very healthy average daily rate that enables them to operate at the level of expectations that the customers hold against their organization and their brands. Very interesting trend, and something that I see as a especially from a perspective of global corporations, large multinational corporations, as a challenge indeed, because obviously this is where it comes down to yes, rate negotiation and expectations for high volumes that would be received by those preferred partners on the supply side. Then let me quickly jump to personalization. I think this topic will come up more and more often, not just in our conversation today, but in many others. The corporations, just like individual business travelers, they will seek more personalized content. And we're making great progress in that front. So technology investments and anything that enables higher degree of personalization is a subject of major investments in the hotel industry. Some organizations are maybe more privileged than others in that sense, and some choices of technology and partnerships may be more affordable or less affordable to others. But nonetheless, it is going to become a very clear expectation for the future. This is also how we as HRS are playing directly into this space, making sure that personalization is enabled for anybody on the supply side participating in this global market ecosystem. Finally, the rates. It's by far not a surprise that that is a topic that will definitely come up every single year. And I think what's interesting in under the current circumstances is that the corporations in all this uncertainty will indeed be expecting rate reductions. That is just a fact for the current environment, and the hotels will definitely react by inspecting and analyzing their own data and projections to define where they can stay more flexible in their negotiations, which locations are more likely to accept rate reductions. So a super interesting season in front of us, Suzanne.
Thanks for that comprehensive overview. I think at moments of economic uncertainty, these negotiation seasons always come with surprises. And what you laid out are, I think they're no surprise as I think about them now, but they're all compounding all at once makes for, as you say, an interesting season. So as a follow-up, within this season, are you seeing any supplier trends or red lines that hotels are currently holding? And if so, how can buyers even prepare to engage with their hotel counterparts so that they can reach a mutual understanding, but also reach their own corporate procurement goals?
That is a great question. I would start with the number one recommendation to all of the buyers, the buyer community out there. Focus on your core destinations. Focus on the hotels that really matter for your program. Don't get distracted by the long tail. Don't get distracted by anything that is not within your core program, where the entire importance of customer journey end to end matters the most. It impacts all of your objectives, whether it's safety, security, whether it's savings eventually in the negotiation process, whether it's sustainability or traveler satisfaction. So here's where you need to be following the 80-20 rule and really focusing on the most important properties. Now, for those properties, second recommendation would be to inspect and get your hands on all of the data sources that you have access to ensure that you have the most complete perspective on all the segments that you can offer to your preferred partners on the supply side. And this is paying into the big topic of convergence. We are not only talking about transient here, we're talking meetings, we're talking long stay. My dear friend Kari will speak to that a little later, I'm sure. And then once we have this exercise out of the way, the buyers can focus on optimizing the RFPs by offering their preferred partners, the significant preferred partners, more transparency, more data, more details when it comes to expectations as far as the upcoming season, details of production across all of those verticals that I have just mentioned. I think that is a very clear win-win driven through data and transparency. My best advice, yes.
Thank you for that. I think that's going to be super helpful for our listeners today who are on the buy side. Crystal ball, I know in this uncertain time, it's really hard to look at what will we be facing in 3 years, but I think the preparation for that starts now. So let's talk tech for just a second. How do you think technology will impact the way hotels target and distribute rates? And how is HRS looking at that in terms of preferred corporate clients and serving their everyday travelers?
So we've had a very exciting 12 months plus already in that space, and there's been lots going on. I think a lot of innovation, a lot of new projects and players emerging in the lodging ecosystem on the tech side, trying to fit into the landscape and boost that huge demand for personalization, for attribute-based selling, etc. So I'll probably start with that. It will be another world in 3 years' time, I'm pretty sure. And that is across the entire customer journey, every single point of it. Attribute-based buying, attribute-based selling will definitely be the focus of the corporate ecosystem. AI will facilitate selections and options that will run in the background, and that's both on the side of the customer and on the side of the supply. It's all about, at the end of the day, capturing every single piece of information that will help us on both ends of the ecosystem achieve a deeper personalization level, better recognition for our frequent travelers, for the customers that we care about the most. And I think the most elite layer of those customers are obviously those who are also affiliated with any of the loyalty schemes of any of the supply providers. So that will definitely be a major boost, and it will go in great detail. I was listening to your podcast, Suzanne, featuring Tammy Ruth and Drew Pinto from.
Thanks for listening.
No, I really enjoyed that, and they were great at explaining, how many different touch points are going to be owned by AI in terms of what the future holds. They are also working at one of the most exciting projects across the entire industry. So yes, we will definitely see the hotels offering personalized offerings, personalized rates to the consumers, to the travelers and corporations, and technology will be a major enabler in that. then I suppose the hotels will stay increasingly aware of the affiliation between the traveler and the company that the guest works with. I think this is where a big opportunity opens up to, next to individual personalization, to also go in the direction of negotiating on-site amenities or offering on-site amenities and access to privileges that are tied to the corporate relationship between the client and the hotel organization. And probably my last and favorite point, with all this technology and with AI running through the entire cycle, the timing and the frequency of negotiation will definitely fluctuate. So I think this is where, there's a sea of hands going up across the entire GBTA member community saying, yes, we want to end that painful process of 9 to 11-month negotiations at the end of which nobody's really happy. And guess what? With this technology and with this new approach in terms of strategy as well, there is absolutely no excuse. We already are seeing instances where technology is enhancing the flow of the RFPs, targeted RFP exercises that are going to a whole new level in terms of beyond continuous sourcing. So AI making direct recommendations to travel buyers, to whoever is in charge of the hotel program, based on what is happening right now across multiple destinations, and coming up with recommendations that are instantly fulfilled. That is also the backbone of our own HRS Copilot, a super exciting invention that we are bringing to the industry in the course of this year. So, yeah, I would say fasten your seatbelts, everyone. It's getting into a super exciting ride.
Well, going to real time and even living in the future is what I'm hearing coming from what you're talking about, Lukasz. So I think it's a great then good transition into something that you already alluded to, convergence, and the idea of that all hotel spend comes into this real-time analysis. So Kari, let's bring you into the conversation now, and let's switch for a moment from core transient hotel sourcing to the world of meetings. You joined HRS as their new VP of Meeting Solutions in January of 2025 after a successful executive role at CWT and before that as a buyer. So 6 months in, how are you finding your fit with a company that's focused on bringing new tech into the corporate meetings ecosystem?
Well, having a lot of fun, I would tell you that. And again, thanks for having me and having us today. You mentioned that I feel like I've been on all sides as soon as I feel like I've been on all sides of the equation of this industry, a new one pops up. And I had intentionally sought out last year a role in tech, right? I felt like that was a good new path that would challenge me. And indeed, it is in a very good way. So, the top pain point in the meetings industry for decades has been payment, right? And so the fact that the vision of our CEO is to really solve that pain point was very compelling for me from the very initial discussion, which actually happened at GBTA last year. So you're facilitating lots of good things. There's really a relentless focus here on technology that meets the future needs, right? I would say not as much focused on what's already been in play, but what can we develop that no one's thought of yet? And that's really what I think has happened with the solution around payment for us, right? Additionally, I say this with affection for the two gentlemen on the phone here, right? Just an unbelievable collection of talent, very diverse, very focused on excellence and really moving that needle, and a real customer mix that is both very familiar to me, right? There's a very strong value proposition between what we're offering in the life sciences vertical, which has been probably the primary focus for me over the past 14 years. And just the value proposition is unbelievably strong. And some new verticals that I don't have as much experience in. So great people, great customers and prospects. And my goal at the beginning with going into technology was, can I find a role that utilizes my experience and expertise and passion, but in this new vein? And I will say I have absolutely found that here at HRS.
Well, as a former GBTA board member, I'm always thrilled when there is lots of career opportunity in our great industry. I think that's just the story of our industry and one that we need to focus on. So thanks for sharing your journey with us.
No problem.
For many years, tech providers trying to bring more automation into the meetings arena have focused on modernizing the procurement or the booking of those meetings. And my understanding is that HRS sees the game changer for meetings as something you just mentioned, which is payments, but also invoicing. So can you tell our listeners more about the potential there as more companies plug that kind of automation into their meetings management process?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say historically, and listen, strategic meetings management was a discipline and a coin termed by GBTA in 2004, not to age any of us. Can't believe we're 21 now, we're legal. But most companies have actually focused on building like an infrastructure to manage the life of a meeting, which is indeed a living, breathing thing, right? It's not an instant transaction. It changes from the moment it starts to the point when it's done and has been executed. And so what I really respect and am so excited about these payment solutions has been the biggest pain point. And this is so simple in a good way, that it takes those programs that have already been advanced. So let's say they have great adoption to their SMM program. They still likely don't have control over 70% of their meetings, which are simple meetings or small meetings. And they still haven't really solved the payment problem. And so the pain is real. And if we flash forward now, what we're able to do is use digitization, use AI and automation, to basically take, once the meeting is sourced and once the event's happened, have a digitized contract and compare it to a digitized invoice. People have been digitizing documents for years. This is nothing new, but take an iterative process where those two are compared until they're perfectly final. And then the payment just happens behind the scenes. Nobody needs a card in their hands. Nobody needs to worry about the risk of having a card number out there. So while it solves that biggest point of getting the meeting paid for, it delivers all sorts of incremental value that buyers didn't even know they necessarily needed all at once. Level 3 data. I mean, most companies, even with the most advanced programs right now, Suzanne, have great detail and data on what was intended. I intend to have a $50,000 meeting, but I don't really know at the end if it was or it wasn't, and what was beneath that. So you get actuals for the first time. You get a beautiful auditable trail of every invoice to every contract. Nobody can do that. And then really the other, I think, great thing about this is this can be totally like infused into your current ecosystem. You don't have to start over. You don't have to reinvent the wheel or rebuild the foundation. It's just kind of like a plug and play. And so as a former buyer across 3 companies, I would have been rabid for this solution 20 years ago. So excited that it's here, know that it's solving the most painful points and delivering all these kind of, I would call them bonus buys for buyers in this space.
Again, exciting progress, and we'll be watching for that. And I think as we head into our last question, and I might ask you both or open this up to both of you. I know that HRS has long been a proponent of companies combining transient and meeting spend. Lukasz, you mentioned it, Kari also, to drive more value and better accounting and also accountability within their supplier relationships. So do you see more programs taking advantage of new technologies to facilitate easier segment convergence and use of that data to accomplish that goal? Kari, let me start with you.
Yes, absolutely. So this has actually been one of my favorite topics for 30 years from when I was at Xerox. My mentor and boss at the time really kind of took a look at our meeting program and said, well, isn't all travel meetings and isn't all meetings really travel? So I'm happy to say, and I'm a glass half full girl. So I think we've come a long, long way. I do think there are still challenges. I do think the pandemic stopped progress in some ways in terms of what Lukasz mentioned, reduced staffing, right? But for a long time, many research studies, including GBTA's own, have shown that more than 70% of travel buyers have some remit or partnership over meetings. And this is a really important component to think about. Because of that, the expectations are changing. And with the availability of improved data, candidly, another reason why HRS was so attractive to me was the fact that they cross over both transient and meetings, and that's been my history as well. I can give you also a stat from the last section of maybe 3 or 4 years of my tenure at CWT meetings and events, and that was 8 to 9 out of every real global bid we received was a joint bid for meetings and travel. No specific commitment that they would necessarily choose one company, but they bid it all together, I believe, with the strong intention to understand what are the synergies we can get, what are the savings we can get, what are the process efficiencies. And so I know it's not solved yet, but I would also offer up that full integration of teams isn't what's important. Good collaboration, a willingness to look at the data and the processes together, and maybe most importantly, the purposeful approach to say the traveler is both an attendee and an individual traveler, depending on the purpose of the trip. And if you look at it that way and plan your processes and their end user experience with that in mind, you're ahead of the ball game. On the supplier side, which I think will be a good segue into my friend Lukasz, I've seen companies go from single account coverage to kind of retract that and back again. It definitely changes the paradigm of how they were built, right? Meetings and travel hasn't always been a part of the same discussion, and so we're pushing boundaries, which is great. But I know it's possible. I've done it myself across a couple of companies, and so I always encourage buyers out there to be bold and gracious and partner focused and say, listen, this is possible. This is what I expect. It's going to benefit you this way, and it's going to benefit me this way. And that's the way to really end up with, maybe you're the cutting edge company that does the best job of it, but it's absolutely possible. It just depends highly on collaboration and partnering in the right way that you find a win-win.
Great perspective on the demand side. Lukasz, closing words on the supply side.
Yeah, I will probably say, first and foremost, convergence and dealing with converged demand is equally applicable to single individual hotels as well as the biggest chains of the world. And it is surprisingly, or maybe not, far more complex in terms of large organizations. As we know, most of those organizations are dealing with a community of preferred customers, global preferred customers, and the number of those can range from as little as 50 all the way up to 250 or 300. Now, these are the ones that are defined to be receiving some extra sunlight from a service perspective, from a global treatment perspective. Obviously, if I ask anybody, are they interested in making more out of convergence? And do they understand what convergence is all about? I think there's been great progress amongst the entire supply community. Yes, there is a very high level of awareness that this is the expectation of many global customers and that it simply needs to happen. Now, if I ask the other question, which is, are you truly prepared to deal with that on a global level as requested by those global customers? Again, talking about MNCs, I wouldn't see so many hands up in the air and very mixed levels of confidence. Simple. The segments other than transient have usually been dealt with on a regional level, market level, cluster level, and that is changing very slowly. Obviously, yes, the best recommendation here would be, instead of overcomplicating this, proceed with something as simple as setting up a central point of contact for any of those inquiries across any of those verticals. From where the customer sits, it will already be tremendous progress, highly appreciated, and very well recognized. That's it.
And it's interesting that we come back to that people are a key piece of technology whenever you're thinking about what makes this industry work so well together across complex ecosystems and complex processes, complex categories and sectors. And there's none that is as complex, in my view, as the hospitality industry as we think about all that's going on in any way, shape, or form, especially in a business travel context. Thanks for these terrific points of view on supply and demand side of hotel sourcing and meetings management. But unfortunately, that's all the time we have today to discuss these things. Thanks so much, Kari and Lukasz, for your insights from HRS. The combined world of corporate travel and meeting space is indeed one to watch and pay attention to as it's quickly evolving. And as we close, I want to thank all of you at home for listening to today's conversation. I'm Suzanne Neufang, CEO of GBTA, and I've been speaking with Kari Wendel, VP of Meeting Solutions at HRS, and Lukasz Dabrowski, SVP of Global Supplier Relations at HRS, and a member of GBTA's Allied Leadership Council. You've been listening to The Business of Travel, the official podcast of the Global Business Travel Association. For more information about GBTA and our work, please visit gbta.org and be sure to rate and review us wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, thanks for listening.